Conrad Evans for patrol method.
Okay. I think he asked me this because I am a horrible scouter, and we usually only have one patrol. But we do use some aspects of the patrol method, so we're going to start off with asking how many of you guys use the patrol method in your troop? By raise of hand. You got one, two. How many of you guys know what the patrol method is? 1, 2, 3. Do you know what the patrol method is? Okay. There is a resource book. You said you'd have one there.
Which one are you looking for?
Senior Patrol Leader Handbook will be in there. Most of them will outline it. The Patrol Leader Handbook. The basics of Patrol Leader method is that you have hopefully more than one patrol. Ideally 6 to 8 boys in a patrol. And you have a leader of that patrol. And how you choose them varies. Scott, how do you choose yours?
Well, right now we have a small,
How many boys do you have?
7.
Okay.
If we had 12, we'd probably split them, and your senior patrol leader's probably, and this sounds crazy, but some wards use the Deacon's Quorum presidency.
How do you do it?
That's how we do it.
You're the Deacon's Quorum
Because we
president.
meet, our meetings, rather than having double meetings, we're always doing, your senior patrol leader would be your president, and your 2 patrol leaders would be the counselors.
Okay.
There's 2 ways to look at it. You can divide it up, and that gives you more responsibilities for the boys, but it also can create some confusion and a lot more meetings to bring it all together. So some wards do it some way and some do it the other.
Okay.
I like to use
How
the
do you guys do it?
presidency.
Depends. My favorite way, to be honest with you, is to elect them. Have the boys elect them to the scout method, and have the Deacon's Quorum president be the chaplain.
Okay.
But it doesn't always work that way. It depends on the group. Sometimes you can't do it that way. Sometimes you got to do with the but
I use a combination of methods.
that's how I've had to do it.
We have the Deacon's Quorum. The Deacon's Quorum president is always our senior patrol leader. And that's what we have because we used to have one patrol. And he's, of course, chosen by the bishop. Usually delegated to the Deacon's Quorum advisor to choose him. But we also need opportunities for other boys to get that leadership opportunity. So when we go on specific camps, I make an assignment. I say, okay, we're going to go to the week-long camp up to Hyuwina. You are the senior patrol leader for this camp. And then he participates in the planning of it, and it gives him that opportunity, so he put it down on us. And we rotate that for different camps, if they're a significant camp. Now, if we're just going to goof off, which we do a lot of, we just stick with the Deacon's Quorum president. Baden Powell said that the patrol method was the cornerstone of scouting, because we're supposed to have a boy-led troop. And I struggle with that a lot, because I hate to fail. But planning is the way you make that not fail. Now, we were successful in planning, not so much anymore, but when we were most successful at planning, we had a breakfast meeting on Sunday mornings. And we did it every Sunday morning except for Fast Sunday. And we would meet a couple, 3 hours before church. It works great if you're not on the 1 o'clock schedule. That's the one that'll test your testimony. It does mine. But we would have a breakfast meeting, and we would invite the priests, teachers, and deacons to that meeting, all the leadership and the adult leadership. We would eat breakfast, we would do our BS session and get that out of the way, and then we would sit down, divide up into groups, and have our planning meetings and make sure our calendars were set up for 3 months in advance. We had an agenda for Deacon's Quorum. We knew what was going to be called when the bishop, Rick, member, called on us in priesthood meeting to say what we were doing that week. The young man knew, stood up and spit it out, and we always looked organized. And it's because we stuffed them with food, and then we sat down and planned. We're not so good at that anymore because for some reason it fell out of popularity. I think some of the wives were tired of cleaning up after us. But it is a great method, and I liked it. It was cheap. We ate pancakes with ice cream. In the patrol leader meeting that we had there, the senior patrol leader and, of course, his 2 counselors would give ideas for what we were going to be doing when we would plan our 1-year and our 3-month calendar. And that worked really well, provided we had the resources. And I don't know how it works in your troop, but a lot of the things we do are what I have the resources to do. Is anybody different than that? I mean, years ago I had a ski boat, and that's what we did every Wednesday. We went skiing until the lake froze. And then in the wintertime, the boys planned most of those camps. But we camped every month, and we used the patrol method in our camping. This month we're going to go to the district camp. Are you guys all going to the district camp? Theoretically, that was supposed to be done on a stake level. I never heard anything about that. It didn't really follow
Yeah,
through, so.
Either in Mazer State.
So, of course, we put that together as a troop, and we used the patrol method there. We have decided to build a bridge, and the boys, we did it one night, and the senior patrol leader designed the bridge, and it was a failure, which is great, because you gotta learn. So we did it 2 weeks in a row, but we analyzed what we did. The senior patrol leader sat down with the boys after it was done, and our bridge was saggy, and one side was tilted over to one side, and our cross deals started to fall apart. And we talked about the knots, and he made specific assignments that we were going to do the next week, and he looked at the resources we had available to us, and we made some big changes. And the boys suggested those changes, and we decided to move away from ropes for the bottom deal. We decided to use a big long toe strap, and we used ratchet straps to tighten the thing. We didn't want to pound any stakes in the ground because they're hard to get back out, so we used 2 trucks, and we've lengthened our bridge to the equipment length that we have, and the boys had all kinds of good suggestions, but they were all approved for our senior patrol leader. And the second week, he made assignments on who was doing what. It took us about, I guess, 30 minutes, and all the boys participated because they all had assignments by the senior patrol leader. We built a beautiful bridge, and you could play tunes on it, tight, and we had like 6 boys on there at a time, and it didn't sag or break, and we feel pretty confident that everybody in camp could pile on our bridge and no one would get injured. And our cross pieces didn't fall apart as the boys learned more about their lashing and stuff. So it worked well, but sometimes it doesn't work. Anybody have any experience with a senior patrol leader that didn't work? And tell me why. You guys are all more successful than me?
Well, sometimes there seems to, like you said, that when you have the Dean's Corps advisors, sometimes they're not into scouting, or sometimes they're got sports or something like that, so they don't show up, and so sometimes that's when it gets kind of tricky.
Apathy is a big part of that. If they've got other activities,
Yeah.
they don't care.
Yeah.
And so then we have a lapse in communication. You guys ever have a lapse in communication?
I was just gonna say, big problem is making sure it's communicated to everybody,
That is our biggest problem right there, communication. We use texting a lot.
and we do too, but
So how do you fix that problem? What do you do in your troop to fix that problem?
if he forgets to text, he's out of the troop.
Pretty harsh there.
No, we do it both ways. We have a safety, we have the senior patrol leader do it,
Okay?
and then one of the leaders also texts. So we
Okay,
actually have double,
that's what we do as well.
so.
I,
Tuesday night, we decided to go fishing because of spring break, and I thought, well, we're not gonna have very many people there because the boys are gonna be out of town. I shot it out there, and next thing I know, I had 5 kids coming to fish out of the boat, and it worked great, but it was a little windy and rainy, but we went and had a good time. I mean, it was just kind of a deal, because we couldn't do what we wanted, because they said they weren't gonna be around. We mentioned fishing, they showed up.
worked well. One of the things we have a problem with is teaching the boys how to delegate. And things get diluted when you delegate. But it is a necessary skill to learn in any patrol method. Because if you dump it all on that one boy, he gets sick of it in a hurry. So we have different boys assigned as part of a call chain, so that when the senior patrol leader says, I've got to get this information out, he'll usually text his 2 counselors, and they each have a set, so they divided it into thirds. And I'll come to a meeting and notice that a third of the boys aren't there.
Who failed?
Yeah. And then I'll say, well, who called so-and-so, and who called I forgot, or I was busy, and that's when we do the backup. And then there's also specific boys that it doesn't work with to have the senior patrol leader or anybody else contact them. They're usually boys we're trying to get active, or that we're doing missionary work with, and they tend to relate more to the adults. So I have a list, in my troop it's 4 boys, that specifically I call their mothers every week and chat with them on the phone. Or when I text them, I try to get that return text. And I have one mother that you're related to that never responds to me unless I don't send a picture of her boy participating in one of our activities as part of the text. And if I do, it's about 90% she'll respond to me and her boy will come out. So there's another great, it has nothing to do with the patrol method, but I get my phone out when we're doing stuff and I take pictures of the boys doing it, and it goes out with my texts. Particularly those parents that don't really have any desire for the boy to participate in anything. If they see their kid having a great time, they react to it. So you might want to think about that. The Patrol Leader Handbook, you're going to want to use that. says here, do patrols work as teams to solve problems? With building our bridge, that was a great example. It was kind of an inspiration to me because I tend to jump in and take over the activity if it's going the wrong direction. Like on our rocket building, I don't want to roast anybody or have my garage burnt down. And so I watch, and if one of the boys is messing something up, I get in there. When really, if they're using the EDGE method, they're supposed to be teaching each other. And we're getting that down so that each boy has a skill set that he's better at than another boy, and they teach that or they oversee it, and then I can stand back and I don't have to be so spread out, is that thin. So when you make your boys work as a patrol and help them to learn to solve problems on their own, and help each other solve problems, it saves you as a scoutmaster a lot of work. And one of those things, I mentioned one of these articles I read, was keeping your distance. And do I have much more time left? 2 minutes? I'll say it fast. I don't know if you guys ever knew Mark Hatch. He's passed away. He was a great scout leader. He was our 11-year-old scout leader for years. And I love this guy, and my kids all went through him. And I went camping with him once because my youngest boy was in his troop, and they were building a fire. Mark just said, you guys go over here and build a fire, and I'm going to get the stuff out and get set up for dinner. And all these little boys went over as a group and just murdered building the fire. So I stepped in and got involved in getting that fire built because I was cold. And Mark said, Conrad, move away and leave them alone. They will get it done. And I'd never done that before. So I pulled up a camp chair and sat there and watched, and it was the most entertaining 20 minutes of my life. As those boys screwed up building that fire for about 15 minutes and buried their, you know how little boys do. And finally they organized themselves. One boy took charge and cleared them all back, and in an organized fashion they each participated in building that fire, and they got it done on their own. And Mark said, see, you just have to let them do it. And sometimes we as leaders have to step back and let them do it in whatever fashion they're going to do it, but they will figure it out. And the patrol method is letting them do that. Even if they fail, you got to let them fail. One of the things that said here was, do your patrols stay together year after year to build on their camaraderie and spirit? They don't do that. They just move into the next corps. We have one patrol, and you last 2 years in that patrol, but it does make for camaraderie and it does make for brotherhood, but it can make for conflict, and that's something we as leaders have to watch out for, because we're not in the tents with them, and we, like our scout activity yesterday is we went and hiked Hogs Canyon, and I'm an old man, so I don't lead the herd. I had my senior patrol leader take charge, and I said, when you get to the end of the trail, I don't want you guys climbing up on the rocks. You stop and wait for us old men. And I could hear, as we were going up the trail, my senior patrol leader, and he's the shortest, smallest boy in the group, but fairly forceful kid, stop those boys from climbing up the rocks. And I had 2 or 3 that wanted to go up those rocks. And I just tell them, you get up there and you're stuck, I'm leaving you there, you're going to die. There's no phone service in here, which there is, but make threats. But anyway, it was interesting to listen to that boy as we come up the trail, stop them and exercise his authority, and made them stay there, and they listened to him, and they were all standing there when we got there, and then we climbed a little up the rocks all together. And on the way back down, I just told him, when we get to the cars, I want everything cleaned up and in the trucks by the time I get there. And I'll be darned, they took off like a bunch of jackrabbits, but when I got to the cars, it was loaded, and I just was able to get in and leave because the senior patrol leader got them organized. So it does work, not all the time.